Today we are going to talk about the fluid system of the eye. In eye there are two fluid systems. Number one is aqueous humor and number two is vitreous humor. Right? We'll talk about the fluid system of the eye today, but mainly in detail we'll talk about aqueous humor, where and how it is produced in the eye, how it circulates, and eventually where it drains. It's very important to know about aqueous humor, its production, its circulation and drainage, because if there is interference with these mechanisms, right, that may lead to pathologically high intraocular pressure, and pathologically high intraocular pressure is one of the major risk factors for a group of diseases called glaucoma, which we will discuss later. Today we will just talk about the very basic about. Right? So let me draw a basic structure of eyeball. Here is your sclera and yes, cornea, very good. And now, of course, your optic nerve. Here I can put, yes, what is it? Iris. And here is ciliary body. Choroid, right? Here I will put, yes, iris, ciliary body and choroid. And here is your, yes, what is it? Lens. And yes, so let me make it here. Now, fluid system of the eye, right? Inside it, of course, you know that what structure should be here? Retina. Am I right? Yes. This is? Now, we'll talk about the intraocular fluid system, right? There are two fluids in the eye. One is behind the lens and other is in front of the lens. Now behind the lens and in front of the, behind the lens and suspensory ligament and in front of the, what is this? Retina, there is a gelatinous fluid, and this is called, yes, vitreous body or vitreous humor. Right? And second fluid system is aqueous humor, right, which is filling in this area, and this area is called posterior chamber, right? And posterior chamber, and in this area also, which is called interior chamber. Now we'll go into detail. First of all, few words about vitreous humor, and then we'll go into detail of aqueous humor. Vitreous humor is basically a gelatinous, like gelatin, sticky, gelatinous mass, semi-solid or jelly type. It mainly consists of very fine fibrils of elongated proteoglycan fibers. Right? Again, vitreous body is a gelatinous mass, right, which is present behind the lens and suspensory ligament and in front of the retina. It is held together. It is held together, yes, by very fine network of fibrils, and these fibrils are made of elongated proteoglycan molecules. Right? But I want to stress this thing. Vitreous humor or vitreous body, this fluid is not freely circulating. Only water and dissolved substances very slowly may be diffusing into it. Right? But in front of the lens, right, this fluid is aqueous humor. This is freely flowing fluid. It is continuously being produced in the eye and continuously being drained. Right? Now, what is the purpose of these two fluids? One purpose of these intraocular fluids is that they keep the eyeball properly distended. They keep it properly distended so that optical functions of the eyeball can be maintained. For example, cornea should be properly distended outward, lens should be supported well at its position, retina should be pushed back, rod and cone layer especially and neuronal layer of the retina should be with pressure maintained back along with the pigment layer of the retina. So one of the major function of vitreous humor and aqueous humor is that it keeps the eyeball appropriately distended, because they keep a pressure of about, especially intraocular pressure in aqueous humor, that is, it ranges from 10 to 20, yes, millimeter of what? Mercury. Is that right? It's a range. On average it is 15, but it fluctuates, right? So this intraocular pressure, you can say in on average we can say 15 millimeter of mercury. One purpose is to keep the eyeball properly distended so that optical system of the eyeball can work well, right? Then there is another purpose, especially of the aqueous humor. Aqueous humor is a clear transparent fluid which provides nutrition to the avascular structure in the eye, especially lens and cornea, right? So aqueous humor is bringing with it glucose, amino acid, even ascorbic acid as an antioxidant. And this aqueous humor washes the lens, right? Provides the nutrition, and also it washes the cornea from its internal side and provides the nutrition, provides glucose, provides amino acids, and also removes the waste metabolites. Is that right? So minimum you must know two functions of intraocular fluid, especially aqueous humor, that it keeps the eyeball distended so that it works optically well, right? And keeping the structures, optical structure in proper contours and proper places. And number two, that this fluid is a nutritive substance, because you know there's no blood circulation in this area. If blood was falling here, then light cannot pass through. So for keeping the optical clarity, nature has provided a wonderful mechanism in place of, instead of blood, there's only aqueous humor which is providing lens and the cornea with the metabolic needs of them, right? Okay. Lens is very happy, you know. Why lens is looking so happy? Because it is in between the two fluids, right? Just little joke. Okay, let's come back. Now we will go into detail of production of aqueous humor. How the aqueous humor is produced, right? Basically, aqueous humor is produced by the ciliary body, right? And I will draw the ciliary body. This ciliary body, it's circumferential, right? In a section. This ciliary body, I will draw it here, right? That exactly which part of the ciliary body is producing aqueous humor and how it is producing aqueous humor. So let's draw the ciliary body here. And of course, you know this structure, what is it? Yes? Iris. And just, what is this muscle here? Dilator pupillae. And which muscle is here? Yes? Sphincter pupillae. Right? But let me go and discuss into detail here. This is sphincter pupillae, and now I don't know why I got interested in this part. Let's go back to the ciliary body. Now ciliary body, it has one part which is interior, other part which is posterior. Anterior part has folds and posterior part is plane. Posterior part of the ciliary body, which continues with the choroid, is plane. Right? Because the structure is plane, posterior part of the ciliary body, it is called pars plana. Right? And this part of the ciliary body, right, it has fold inside. and these, due to these folds, it look like corrugated, right? That is why it is this part of the ciliary body, this is called pars plicata. Plicata. Is that right? Then another thing. Ciliary body has basically three important structures. There are so many structures, but three at least you should know. Number one, ciliaris muscle. Number two, ciliary body stroma. And number three, ciliary body related epithelium, ciliary epithelium, right? When we talk about the muscle in the ciliary body, of course, these muscle fibers, they are directed into three directions. Number one, yes, these are longitudinal fibers. Then there are radial fibers, and then there are circular fibers. But today we are not going into detail of ciliaris muscle. What I want to tell you, under it, there is highly vascular stroma, which plays a part in formation of aqueous humor. Now this, let me draw one diagram. This is vascular stroma, right? This is vascular stroma, and just more internal to it, there is ciliary epithelium, right? Now I will draw the ciliary epithelium with green color. Over this vascular structure, there is ciliary, yes, epithelium. And this ciliary epithelium, especially that epithelium which is non-pigmented, very good, right? That plays a major role in formation of aqueous humor, right? Now what is the steps in formation of aqueous humor? Number one, these cells actively secrete sodium. What do they secrete? Sodium ions, right? These are positively charged. And who follows the positive? Negative. Is that right? The way boys follow the girls, opposite polarity. So sodium is actively transported and it is passively followed by, yes, yes, chloride and bicarb. Chloride and bicarb, right? So first thing to be secreted is, this is active secretion of aqueous humor. The first substance which is actively secreted by these epithelial cells is sodium. Is that right? In the posterior chamber. Let me make the chambers more clear in the eye, right? Let's suppose here is your beautiful eye, and here, okay, I make it little larger so I can make chambers more clearly. This is iris, right? And here is your lens, suspensory ligament, right? Now, actually, the area which is in front of the iris and behind the cornea, this area is called anterior chamber. What is it called? Anterior chamber. Usually at its central point, it's about 3 millimeter deep. This is anterior chamber. And the area behind the iris, but in front of the lens and suspensory ligament, this area is called posterior chamber, right? Naturally, here is your, what is this here? Ciliary body, and I must draw it here also. Ciliary body, right? Now, anterior chamber is located behind, in front of the iris, but behind the cornea, right? And posterior chamber is in front of the lens and the suspensory ligament, and behind the posterior aspect of the iris. Is that right? Any question? Now, as aqueous humor is draining here, when it is being synthesized, it is being secreted here. Sorry, not draining, secreted here. And of course from all sides. Aqueous humor is secreted here. So we can say aqueous humor is secreted into which chamber? Anterior or posterior? Posterior. So aqueous humor synthesis by the ciliary body lead to secretion of the aqueous humor into posterior chamber. It means here. Right? Now let's come back. We have removed the structure and magnified here. Right? So we were talking about this active secretion of sodium followed by the passive release of chloride and bicarb, and when these two come over here, now osmotic pressure in this area will become more, and who follows? Water. So what really happens? Then water follows, you can say, to this area. This is the basic mechanism how it is secreted, right? That first is active secretion of sodium followed by chloride and bicarb, and these ions, cations and anions are, right? These cations and anions, they put what? Osmotic pressure, and that drag the water out of vascular stroma. Is that right? And of course with that there is also transport of glucose, amino acids, and especially don't forget ascorbic acid, vitamin C, which act as an antioxidant, and glucose and amino acids, of course, they are providing the nutrition to the lens and the cornea. Am I clear up to this? So this is the main mechanism that how it is being secreted, right? Now, these processes, finger-like projections over which there is epithelium which is secreting aqueous humor, these projections are called, yes, ciliary processes. These are called ciliary processes. Now you have to remember that very clearly three terms. Number one, ciliary body, right, which is all the structure, and ciliary body has a muscle, right, which is called ciliarus, right, and then there is vascular stroma and epithelium, and the loops of vessels covered by this epithelium which actively secrete aqueous humor. These loops are called ciliary processes. Ciliary processes. So now we can say, we can sum up that actually in the pars plicata of the ciliary body, ciliary process, epithelium actively secrete aqueous humor in the posterior chamber. Any question? No question? Now we go to the next situation, and that is about the drainage, that how it circulate and eventually drain, because it is continuously being produced at the rate of about 2.5 microliter per minute, right? Total volume in normal eye of this aqueous humor, all the aqueous humor which is present in posterior chamber and anterior chamber, all the aqueous humor which is present in posterior chamber and anterior chamber in a normal eye is approximately 0.3 ml, right? It's a very small amount. Of course, your eyes are not elephant eyes. 0.3 ml. And in this 0.3 ml, every minute, approximately 2.5 microliters is being added. It means it should be continuously removed also. It should be continuously drained somewhere also. Is that right? Now, approximately during an hour or so, all the aqueous humor in the eye is replaced. Approximately. Is that right? Yes. Now you have a question.
Sir, I am not able to understand that whether these ions, sodium and others, are they secreted by the stroma or by the epithelium?
Okay, very good question. He is asking that all these ions, they are really secreted by stroma or epithelium. Answer is very specific. Epithelium. Because epithelial cells have the pumps here, sodium potassium ATPases, which are actively throwing the Yes, sodium out and taking the potassium in. Is that right? So this is the epithelium which actively secretes sodium and then transfer chloride and bicarb through the channel. There is passive transfer of these two, but there are special channels because these membranes are not permeable to ions. Is that clear? So the function of reaching sodium here and then followed by chloride and bicarb, it's mainly function of this epithelium. Is that right? Yes. Now, actually, eventually these ions are coming from vascular stroma. Because epithelium is, even though actively secreting them, but from where it is getting the sodium and chloride and bicarb? From vascular stroma. But secretion is a function of epithelium supported by vascular stroma. Right? And of course, water is dragged from the vascular stroma due to osmotic pull. Osmotic pull of these ions. Water is dragged from the vascular stroma between the interepithelial spaces, and then water comes over here. And these cells also actively, some substances actively, some primary active transport or secondary active transport or simple facilitated diffusion, but these cells can also get the glucose, amino acids and ascorbic acid over here. So what did we learn up to now? That ciliary processes are, their epithelium is actively secreting aqueous humor into posterior chamber. Right? Now, once it is secreted into posterior chamber, then what happens? Now we'll go into detail that as it is being continuously secreted,